Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you, Casey. Thank you for having me.
Well, Alex, I'm excited to have a fellow retirement income nerd with me here today. So this is something that just gets me going. I don't think there's two things that really get me excited when I come to a podcast, and that's usually something around retirement income or taxes. And those are the things that I really love taking deep dives into. There's not too many people getting excited about retirement income strategies and taxes, but boy, these are just fun conversations for
And you don't
me.
even have to pay money for that.
I know, right? And I mean, bringing on Dr. Pfau, just a huge opportunity and a big moment for me to have a conversation with someone that I've taken such a deep dive into research over the years and years that I've been following him. And now we have you here as well. So I'm really excited to jump in and figure out exactly what's going on with RISA, what you're working on latest and greatest right now. And we also have some great questions that came in from some of our fans that I want to turn over to you as well. But
Sure.
first of all, you're a retirement researcher, you're the CEO, and you have Dr. Pfau, you have Bob French. There's the three of you. And so you just have these three musketeers over there. How did the three of you come together? And what gaps did each of you fill for each other? Because you each have kind of unique backgrounds.
Sure. Well, just my background, real quick, because I think I'll set the stage. My graduate degree, my doctorate's in clinical psychology. And so that's something unique within the industry. Although I obviously I think the spotlight has been, shown on that piece of it right now. And I wasn't necessarily a therapist, more of a researcher. But you still need to do your hours from the standpoint of therapy. So you do your thing. But effectively, I got into the investment management industry simply because I was an NIH fellow. And as part of the fellowship, you're given a stipend. And if you're in grad school and you get a stipend, you think you're rich, no matter what, 10,000, I forgot what it was. And that, I needed to know what to do with that. And that led me down the road of investments and theory and stuff like that. And I just applied an academic approach. And by the time I graduated, I knew this was a field I wanted to go in. I just continued my course of study. So that's how I got into it. But I first met Bob before Weade, and Bob started working at DFA, Dimensional Fund Advisors. It's a fairly established, and at that time it was a boutique, well-to-do mutual fund company, institutional oriented and the like. In fact, Bob's father, Ken French, is the director, one of the directors of research there. Very, one of the top economists in the world, I can say pretty easily. And Bob was working there. And Bob is a hugely gray matter guy. He just flies under the radar a lot. And he came over to our office for a visit, and we just started chatting, and we hit it off great. And he was getting his MBA in Georgetown at the time, and we just said, hey, look, we have a spot here. And we started, actually, at that time, we had started out of McLean Asset Management, a financial planning software company. And Bob really wanted to kind of check that part out of his professional trajectory. So he joined us. It was called InStream Solutions, and it's still out there right now. It's just more of a white labeled solution for larger insurance companies and the like. And, Bob came over, and we hit it off great. I mean, it was a great thing. Now, in addition, while we were doing that, I actually started reading some of Wade's articles, and that was when he had just started. And I said, oh, this is somebody that's on it. He gets the joke. And we were introduced by Andrew Gluck, a financial journalist at the time, and he's still around. And Andrew made the introduction. I told Weade the craziness of what we were doing with InStream, and he joined, that kind of thing. He joined our team. And one of the things, I don't know if people know this, but, Weade obviously is this highly respected, erudite academic and the like, but he's also one of the nicest guys, understated guys you'll ever meet. And he's very easy to work with, and he came on board, and we haven't looked back. That was, I want to say, 2010, kind of thing, when we really started working together. And then after InStream, which was the financial planning software company that we had, we sort of moved on simply because owners came in. It was that, are you a technologist or are you advisors? Yeah, that kind of thing. And we decided we're going to be advisors. And so InStream kept on, but, Bob, myself, and Weade huddled up, and we remained at McLean. And Weade had a blog, Retirement Researcher, that he started even in Japan. And when he came over to McLean, we were like, why don't we use this blog to really provide financial education for a subset of folks that, just want to learn. And so we really tried to fortify that quite a bit, and we did that. And in that process, it became its own little endeavor, retirementresearcher.com, which is where we publish and do a lot. When I say we, I really mean Weade and Bob. We put our stuff out in terms of retirement research, and we really started, fleshing that out quite a bit. And that led to the creation of the RISA, because what was happening is a lot of folks were asking us questions. How do we do this? How do we do? Should I allocate my portfolio to 70% equity, 30% fixed? Some very personal question. And Weade and I and Bob were like, how are we going to answer this? In an in-depth way, because the reality is the answer is always it depends. And then it depends on these various factors. And then ultimately you may need to run a number. And the reality is we didn't feel comfortable giving out, very detailed explanations online just because it just didn't feel right. And vice versa. I don't think consumers liked hearing us just say it depends. So it kind of left an empty taste in both people's mouths. And that led us to create the RISA. But in terms of how we met, it's just how we met. It was like that. And we all hit it off great. I mean, Weade serves as that sort of retirement income planning expertise. He hits that spot really well. Bob is the investment theory, practical application piece. And I just kind of like hide between both of them.
Well, we all need a behavioral expert.
Well, I don't know about that, but hey. I'm the Reggie Jackson. I'm the straw that stirs the drink if you want. But no.
You're definitely
I kind of, they do their thing and I get out of their way, and that's, it seems to work.
You're bringing some very unique things to the table. I really enjoy it. And one of the things that you said there, you said Weade gets the joke. That kind of stood out to me because I've always thought that. I think there's some of us in the industry that have followed Weade for some time and go, Weade gets it. Yeah. And I would like to know, what does that mean to you when you say Weade gets the joke? What did it mean to you when you first thought that? What's that mean to you today?
Well, when I thought it back then, a lot of the research, it's a new field. Financial planning is effectively a new field on a relative basis to a science, right? And there were a lot of research articles that were out in the Journal of Financial Planning. And again, let's say 10 years ago or so, you start reading through them and you think they're silly. They're not real hard science. They're just kind of opinion pieces. And when Weade started, or, glorified Excel sheets that are put in Word form, and as the saying goes, if you really want to read fiction, read an Excel sheet, kind of thing. And so the reality is you start reading Wade's stuff and you realize that there's some heft behind this. Like he gets the joke in terms of how the scientific method should function. At that time, that's how I was interpreting. He gets the joke. He's not just some guy that's having fun with Excel and saying, oh my, look at this. Look how this turned out. What a concept, And I think from the financial planning field, I think Weade, I mean, maybe there's others, et cetera. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, but Weade was really someone that stood out to me as someone that brings in scientific rigor to the financial planning world. And he does it in a way that's agnostic, which is what a true scientist should be. And that's what I mean, that he gets the joke. He's not coming in with some preconceived, we need to do this, we need to do that. He's saying, what do the numbers show? I mean, look at what he's written about reverse mortgages, right? I mean, who would have thought, after Tom Selleck commercials and I forget his name. I think he does the diabetes commercials too. They're pitching reverse mortgages in a really weird way. I mean, Weade takes a look at that literature and runs the numbers and said, look, this is a viable strategy for certain individuals, and here's why. And you can argue on your preferences and things along those lines, but I don't care. In God we trust. Everyone else bring data, right? Yeah. And if you look at the numbers, you can't argue certain things on merit, when it's a numbers-based situation. And Weade gets that. It's this agnostic approach what do the numbers show? And if the numbers show that, then it is what it is. And I think that kind of humility is missing in a lot of folks. I think a lot of folks in our space, have this sort of preconceived, this is the best strategy. This is the best this or that. And they go down that road as opposed to just taking that agnostic approach, the null hypothesis, and then, trying to disprove things. And that's what I mean by he gets the joke.
Well, and I want you to expand on that too, because I think there's an opportunity for an investor, specifically maybe in this role, since we're talking about retirement income, a retiree to apply that scientist practitioner mindset. If someone wants to go down that road, how would someone apply the scientist practitioner mindset to, or leverage that to make better investment or financial decisions?
Yeah, I would say you take a little bit of a Ray Bradbury approach, Fahrenheit for 51. Like, if you could burn commercials, all those commercials that you see on TV, all those, Power Lunch, Squawk Box, Fast Money, all of that kind of stuff, just burn it. Just ignore it. You got to like rid yourself of that in a funny sort of way, because that's not how advice works. I mean, it's funny, right? The consumers see these things on TV and they assume this is how it's done. But I don't know of any firm in the country, and even in a country that kind of manages money the way these folks talk. I just don't see it. I haven't. And if they do, I mean, and funny, you see some firms there. I mean, there's some folks, there's some figureheads that are talking and saying, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. And then you look at their firms and they're indexing. So there's a high level of duplicity that you see out there within the consumer media. And look, it's nothing new what I'm saying, right? That they're appealing to your prurient investing proclivities, that kind of thing. But the reality is just burn that to the ground, because that's the wrong way to think about the markets, or to think about investing, or to think about retirement success. So once you can do that, then you can rebuild. And, you simply put, is what does the literature say without having any preconceived notions of what should work and what shouldn't. Now, the issue with that, though, Casey, is that there's just a lot out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there. And so, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to burn everything that I know from the consumer media, and then I'm going to start building myself back up. And in doing that, that takes a long time. 5 years later, now I'm ready. So, you can't do that either, right? And so, how you would take about a strategy is first, it really is a matter of preferences to me. To fast track it is, how do you want to source your retirement income? And once you figure that out, then you can really look at the literature. But let's say you've figured that part out right now, and that's something I'm kind of hinting at the RISA to some extent, but I don't want to take the conversation there. I want to get to your question. And so, but once you know how to source retirement income, once you know how you want to source retirement income, then it's really just doing the legwork, the research legwork of, okay, well, who are the top authors in this area? And by top authors, I don't mean like Dave Ramsey or anything like that, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's kind of a joke, to be honest with you. It really is more what's in the academic literature with regards to how
you're going to offend some people with that one.
Right? I don't care. It is what it is. The views and opinions here are those of Alex Murguia, not those of Casey Weade. Please spare him any emails and send them my way.
But I think you're saying joke, though, in the way that it's not research backed. It's there for marketing purposes.
Yeah, effectively. As long as you stay with that research-backed approach, and you go from there. And I think that'll lead you, all roads will lead to where you want to go if you really are true to that. And just remember to check yourself at the beginning. And by check yourself, I mean, try to remove any preconceived methods of what you want to do. That way you avoid this confirmatory bias of saying, oh, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want. Really take this agnostic approach. And you'd be surprised where you may land. I mean, it's easy for me to say. I can say that in 30 seconds, but I think it's a mindset shift to be able to do that.
It's maintaining an open mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the other maintaining open. Well, I guess, yeah. And the other piece that I think is really relevant, and I think Annie Duke's book is great in terms of pushing this out there, and it's this concept of follow a process, because also if you look at behavior finance, they'll tell you how we're just not equipped. We're really not adaptively equipped to make decisions with regards to our finances. We're, over the last 300,000 years, we've been adapted to make decisions to stay alive, right? But when it comes to investing, we're just not there. Investing is something that's a relatively new phenomenon in our development. And so from that perspective, we naturally have these biases, which we need to survive, these mental shortcuts. Unfortunately, these shortcuts really submarine our ability to be effective investors. Now, just knowing them isn't enough. And so it comes down to developing a process so you can try to take advantage of automaticity, take advantage of automating certain models. And Annie Duke really, it's a great book, for folks. And the takeaway ultimately, at least for me, is, there's a scientific method approach that you want to do, but, the ultimate end game is you have a process in place. You have a qualified, credible process in place. That's not going to guarantee investment success, because there's just, in this world with regards to investments, there's just too much left to chance. No matter what, there's just too many things, like what economic cycle you're retiring in, etc. There's too many things that are chance driven that can impact your retirement income success. But if you follow a credible strategy in a systematic manner, and you always use that as your anchor, that helps buffer you from these biases. It just does. But it also helps you keep your eye on what has worked from a credible standpoint. And even though it may not guarantee success, if you do that enough time, the odds are going to be heavily in your favor. That's the best kind of way I can answer that.
Your bio says you were very disillusioned by the lack of assessment tools used in the financial planning profession. And some might look at that and go, what are you talking about? There's so many different tools. We have Riskalyze, we have Money Guide, we have Retirement Analyzer, InStream. We have all these different tools. What did you see was missing from those tools?
I'm specifically talking about like psychological assessment tools, if you will, not necessarily like Money Guide or financial planning tools. That's just Jenga, that's just, numbers go in, numbers go out, and it's pretty clear. But if you take into consideration the risk tolerance tools, effectively, there's nothing inherently wrong with them. They have a purpose, and their purpose is, look, we're going to try to align your risk tolerance score with an investment portfolio, right? And that's okay, fine. There's issues there with regards to reliability, which is, reliability would be like, let's say I get on a weight scale 10 times in a row right now. And that weight scale tells me that I'm X amount, 160 pounds. I get on and off 160 pounds. I get on again, 160 pounds. I get on again, 160 pounds. It's pretty consistent. If I get on and off 10 times in a row and I'm 160, then I'm 170, then I'm 150, then I'm 155, it's an unreliable scale, right? And so there's some issues with that, with risk tolerance scales with regards to that, specifically around times of market volatility, that your risk tolerance all of a sudden, swings. And so you have to ask yourself, is this a trait that it's measuring, or is it a state? Trait, I'm introverted. State, I'm angry, I'm nervous, right? And so there's some issues there with risk tolerance questionnaires, but let's just say that's not an issue. We can cross those hurdles. We'll make some heroic assumptions and assume we're good. Right? There's still nothing, they're okay, fine. Because they do have a place, right? But ultimately what they're doing is assigning you an investment portfolio, right? We can argue in the fringes whether it's valid or not, et cetera, but that's not for here. They're assigning you an investment portfolio. And what that does is assuming that what you want ultimately, if you do that at the start, that's assuming that you want a total return strategy. You want a strategy that is going to try to create a sustainable withdrawal rate from your portfolio. Unfortunately, when you retire, investing is different. You have other risk factors, right? And a risk tolerance could be fine at the beginning when you're accumulating, because effectively, you don't have to worry about spending shocks. You don't have to worry about certain things that you may face in retirement, because you're still drawing on your job. You're still drawing on human capital for your daily needs. When you retire, you're subject to a few more risks. And so that removes this sort of reward contemplation that a risk tolerance scale is focused on, right? It just doesn't work when you're in retirement. At a certain point, there is a place for investments and a risk tolerance questionnaire will come in. But what I'm getting at, there's no place when you transition into retirement that tries to assess the simple question, how do you want to source retirement income? And that's a very important question to ask. And so there's no assessment tool that really just tries to get at, hey, how do you like to source retirement income? And an analogy to that Weade talks about it now, I've talked about it very often, is when you're deciding what to do professionally, you're ultimately asking yourself, how do I want to source my human capital? All right? What do I want to do for a living? How do I want to source, and there's many tools like strength finders, MMPI, Colby, that kind of try to get a sense of where you're at and what kind of job you would be good at, a front of the house position, a back of the house position, someone that's pure analytical behind a computer running numbers, that kind of thing, to try to set you up. And so, imagine if there was a high school guidance counselor and that high school guidance counselor was telling everyone, hey, look, when you retire, when you're, your senior year is telling you, hey, you want to work for the IRS. You should try to work for the IRS. They're hiring, right? 80,000 people. You should try to work for the IRS because if I were to put the IRS job in this sort of efficient frontier of human capital, it hits great. It provides you with a standard of living that you can have throughout your entire life, no problem. And you know what? When you retire, you get a pension. So you know what? That's the best risk-reward job in the world. You should do that. And I'm going to tell everyone to do that. That would be unfathomable. You wouldn't do that at all. In fact, they say, what do you want to do? Do you want to be in sales? Do you want to be in, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you're retiring, you really are making that, you're revisiting that question, as opposed to with your human capital, you're revisiting it with hopefully accumulated investment capital that you have now because you've mined all your human capital. And so then you have to decide, how do you want to source retirement income? And there's many ways to source retirement income. And, and they all require different preferences. Do you want a total return approach? Do you want a income protection approach? Do you want a bucketing strategy? Do you want a risk grab strategy? And so that's what I'm getting at, that really there's nothing out there to try to quantify this, or at least get it going. I think many advisors do this, by the way, implicitly. Right now, I think many advisors do this implicitly, at least the good ones. But, I still think it's done in a somewhat clumsy manner and not in a really standardized manner. And I don't think, frankly, clients realize, or prospects or individuals out there realize that, hey, I have a choice in how I want to source retirement income. I think there's a matching problem in terms of, hey, you have this potential individual out there in the wild that is looking for a retirement income strategy and happens to read an article, because of these approaches are very credible in and of itself. He reads an article, she reads an article and says, this makes sense. This must be the way I should do it. Or they randomly walk into an office, and advisors are human beings and they have their own penchant for what they want to do. And they explain their strategy. And before you know it, that's what that person's doing, because it makes sense to me. But you need to take a step back and first ask yourself, hey, how do you want to source retirement income? And then match that up. And the only way to do that is not with numbers, but with your preference for how you want to source it. How do you feel comfortable? What do you gravitate towards?
Yeah. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? Along the way to retirement, we have all of these assessments that we can do that analyze our psychographics to help us better leverage our human capital. But once you get to retirement, there isn't some type of assessment that helps us determine which strategies, retirement income strategies specifically, are going to be best for us with our psychographics at that stage in the game. There's plenty of tools that can say, yep, this is the optimal retirement income strategy for you. However, is it really for you? No, it's just technically this is the best retirement income strategy. It may not be the best strategy for you. Can you even live with it?
Yeah, it's optimizing based on numbers as opposed to optimizing based on how you want to do it. And, my argument would be, if it resonates with you, you're most likely to follow through on it.
Yeah, but this is a lot different than my dad was an advisor back in the 80s and 90s and pulling out the old yellow pad and just having a good conversation.
No,
The world's
but it's
evolved.
not, but that's, I bet your dad implicitly was doing this very effectively.
Mhm.
You know, I'm sure your dad was doing this very effectively. It was implicit, right? But that's the scarce resource. The scarce resource isn't giving somebody 5 questions and optimizing them into an investment portfolio. You know, the scarce resource is really teasing out of some individual how they want to sort of optimize their retirement personally. And I'd venture to say, being that if you took over, you're sort of a continuation of your dad from a professional standpoint. He was very good at what he did. And so I can probably imply that your dad was probably doing this just implicitly in a good way. And he was really connecting with individuals.
Yeah, it's about leveraging the tools and the technology that we have available to us today. And I'm really excited for RISA. One of those things that I do get excited about RISA is the scalability of it. If you have a practice, you're onboarding advisors, this is a risk, right? You're onboarding advisors with their own preferences, with their own biases, and then they're bleeding those into the client. With it, and those definitely happened with Dad, right? He was definitely going to bring his own bias to the table. I think it's impossible for us not to do that. But a tool like this can take some of that bias out, at least on the front end, to help us drive someone to a better strategy that's better for them. Can you quickly, we've said RISA many times. What is RISA? And what is RISA? Why did you create it? Just give us a good high level overview of what RISA is.
Sure. It's effectively the retirement income style awareness. RISA. It means laughter in Spanish, by the way. We threw that in there just to sneak that in there. But effectively what it is, it's an assessment tool to determine how you best like to source retirement income. You had said Weade was on an episode, and I'm sure he broke it down in detail. But it's an assessment tool that tries to capture 2 main factors: optionality and commitment orientation, and probability-based safety first orientation.
Yeah. Well, and he really focused on probability versus safety first. I feel like the optionality and commitment piece is a little bit more, a little newer, a little bit more unique to RISA.
Sure. Well, effectively, I'll concentrate on that. But probability based is more market driven, safety first, more contractual driven in terms of sourcing income. Optionality and commitment orientation is a factor that came out very strong in our study, in terms of saying, look, this has significant explanatory power in terms of retirement income preferences and selection strategies. And optionality implies that, in the word, I like to keep my options open. There's this sense of, yes, I get the theory behind a SPIA, a single premium immediate annuity, a personalized pension that I buy. I get it. I see that there's this annuity puzzle and all of that, which is why don't more people do it? Because it makes obvious sense. But the reality is, I don't want to lock in. I don't want to buy it and then I'm locked in. There's this uncomfortable nature that people have in terms of removing future potential alternatives. It's just one of those things that you see. And it goes both ways, right? I don't want to lock in because potentially the situation may improve and I've missed out. So there's this opportunity cost, and there's this just sort of finality to it that some people don't want. They want to be able to reassess every few years, no matter what. And so that really affects the decision-making process on a retirement income strategy. And the inverse of that is a commitment orientation, which is, the other side of the same coin, which is I want to lock in on this now because it resolves this solution for the rest of my life. And as much as things may improve, the economic situations may improve, and I could potentially have done better, they could get worse. And I don't want to deal with it. And I know that if it solves this issue right now, that's it. I'm done. I've resolved my retirement income needs, at least for essential expenses. And that has a great positive psychological valence for me. In fact, it may allow me to even be more aggressive on my investments because I know that I've locked in my essential expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some other remnants, like if I've locked something down, potential for future cognitive decline is taken care of. I don't need to worry about it as much. There's other things that you get value from this commitment orientation. And what we found is that probability, safety first, and optionality, commitment, orientation, those two variables really identify your retirement income preferences. And, the aha moment that Weade and I had when we were looking at the research is not only can we identify preferences, but we can map them to specific strategies. And that, it sounds weird me saying something like this, but that's really an innovative feature in the industry that we just didn't see coming until we started looking at the research. The ability to really blend psychology and financial planning together into like this Venn diagram. Mm-hmm. And the RISA sits somewhere between the intersection of those two circles because it's the practical application of the psychological attributes, into an actual strategy. And so we just, found it fascinating.
Yeah, I love the tool. It's going to revolutionize so many parts of the retirement income planning business. I truly do believe that. I am wondering what you're seeing from an industry trend standpoint. When you look at safety first, probability, what kind of financial industry trends do you see? Are more trends going towards safety or probability? You look at commitment over optionality. What kind of trends do you see there in the financial advice industry?
It's a great question. I don't know about forecasting how effective I can be, that kind of thing. I don't know how good I am about looking around corners. I just, get a sense of it from my own business. And I'm sure you do it from your own business, Casey, in terms of how you want to position your firm. But within McLean, a quick history. When I started McLean, my partner, Dean, who's like a father figure to me, he was very prescient in terms of, okay, look, this was in 2001. And he had some insurance business, but he was actually converting to a fee-only model, right? And from that vantage point, he hit it dead on in terms of where the consumer appetite was. And also at that time, a commission-oriented business model was kind of tricky, right? But interestingly enough, here we are, 2022, and I think the folks that are struggling, at least on the consumer side, from the perception, are not folks that are providing annuity sales or things along those lines, because I think that business is actually, to some extent catching up with equitable sort of sales practices and the like. I mean, it was there be dragons here a long time ago, but I think it's on the upswing. And I think the bad guys, in some funny sort of way, and I say that in quotes, are the advisors that charge 1% a year and call it a day. I think if you read a lot of the investment media, I think those are the folks that are being targeted by them. And so why? I think part of it is because as much as advice is this verb, and to borrow, Michelle Richter's phrase, as much as advice is this verb, when you couch it around model portfolios tend to become nouns. And so I think what's happening is this 1% AUM fee is really you're selling a product, you're selling model portfolios. And that tends to be one of these things that, because of the RISA and this realization that there's many ways to get your retirement income strategy right, if you're just focused on a total return and slapping a 1% AUM fee and nothing else, I think you're going to have trouble in the future with that, because there's just it's coming full circle. I think folks are realizing retirement is different. I kind of need something more than just this. Mm-hmm. And if you ask me, I think firms that are able to provide, a few investment in retirement income strategies beyond just a total return are going to be well positioned to satisfy the needs of consumers.
Well, what I hear you saying is there's been a huge focus on compensation over the last 10, 15 years. It's been about fee only versus commission, or fee-based versus fee only versus commission only. And the shift today is, does compensation matter that much? Maybe not nearly as much as the value that's being provided. Am I being provided value in actually analyzing what is right for me and creating something that's truly custom?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think people get into these sort of arguments for, I'm more ethical than you, so there, that kind of thing. Mm. And I don't know. I don't buy into that. I think if you're a true fiduciary, regardless of what like contracts say or this regard, in terms of the heart, if you're a true fiduciary, you need to act in the best interest of the clients, and you can't act in the best interest of the clients if you're not even asking them what their interests are. You just don't, and you're really, if you kind of ignore the 3 other retirement income strategies and you're just focusing on one, assuming that that's the right way, I think you're making a mistake. I think you're making a mistake, and you're living in some sort of world that's accommodating you more than anything. And just with regards to the RISA, we looked at a few national studies, not just one. And only 35% of the population seems to resonate with a total return strategy for retirement income. 35% resonates.
This hit me so hard.
But you can do a whole thing. You can do a whole thing on this. 35% resonate with income protection, which is kind of the SPIAs, the DIAs, that kind of thing. 15% with risk wrap, which is really a variable annuity or RILA with guaranteed living benefits, and 15% with time segmentation bucketing strategies. I realize for the audience, I'm throwing out terms, so I apologize. But
we'll circle back to that here.
Yeah, but the main takeaway is only 35% of the people really resonate with this total return strategy. So why are we jamming them with that?
Yeah.
Why does the industry jam people with that, assuming that, this is the best way? I have trouble reconciling that professionally.
Yeah. And everybody they're going, hey, I'm AUM focused. We do stocks and bonds. We're fee only. But only, 67% of individuals are actually wanting something that's not just market driven.
Exactly. You're tethering somebody. Yeah, no, it's crazy. And look, it's a phrase.
Why would I put myself in that hole?
We say this a lot. The market doesn't owe you a retirement. The market is not there to fund your retirement. The market is there as a financing tool for companies. You're just piggybacking on it.
That's so good.
No, but that's the truth. You're just piggybacking on it. But you think, the market's not some magical place. Like, okay, here's my money. You put it behind a curtain. You wait 10 years, and there's more money. That's what I think. A lot of people think that's what the market is. It's someplace where I put money and more comes out later. No, that's not really what it's there for. The market is a financing mechanism for companies. Full stop. You just piggyback off of it. Now, over time, this and that, I can show you Ibison charts, whatever, right? But that's what it is. It's not a social engineering exercise to help people retire. And so when you are taking on a total return approach, you're tethering yourself to the future of capitalism, which is fine. I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying, know what you're doing.
Yeah, still a valid strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
It falls into one of those, 4.
But I can see why only 35% of the people really want to tether themselves to the market, because you can have full faith. I believe in America. America has made my fortune. You can quote The Godfather and all that. You can have full faith in capitalism. But are you going to have full faith that these market returns are going to hit the moment you retire? I don't know.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about we talked about the 2 approaches, like kind of the 2 constructs, and then that's broken down into the matrix, which makes up 4 different quadrants. Can you walk us through the core retirement income strategies and which quadrant those fall into?
Sure. You have so if we had those probability based versus safety first, optionality, and commitment orientation. So if you put together and everything, quickly, everything's on a spectrum too. So it's not as clearly demarcated as I would, it's not all in a nice little box like we're making it out to be, but you have to do something, right? You have to put something on the PowerPoint. And so you can't put that cloud or whatever. And so effectively, if you have a high degree of optionality and you have a high degree of probability orientation, that is going to coincide with a total return investment approach. And it makes intuitive sense, right? What you're saying with a total return investment approach is I subscribe to the probability that over time the markets will go up. So if I have an investment portfolio that's heavily invested in the stock market, I can take a withdrawal from it because over time it'll be self-sustaining because the net value will consistently increase. Optionality on that quadrant also implies that I realize it's going to be variable. I may have to, I'm not just going to play chicken with the stock market and take out, X% every year, no matter what. Like somebody that I alluded to earlier implies that you can take a market returns at 11% every year, so you have no problems taking out this. It's kind of silly. That's a specious kind of argument. But effectively, optionality implies that you're willing to be flexible around the amount of money you can take out. And, you have many variable, sustainable withdrawal strategies, right? And so it fits very well. Now, let's go to the other end of the spectrum, which is total return. Total return is, listen, I get all the research. I can look at an Excel sheet. I can look at a chart and I get it. Markets go up. Thank you. But I don't know if they're going to go up when I need them to go up. And frankly, I don't want the aggravation. You know what? I want to lock in on a paycheck. This goes back to your preference, right? I love sales, but I don't want the aggravation of dealing with sales. I want a behind the desk job, that kind of thing. And so I don't want the aggravation of having to look at the news every day or whatnot. I want a paycheck. And so I want a contractual obligation. I'm willing to purchase a contractual obligation, for my retirement income, largely for essential expenses, right? And I want to lock in on it. I want a floor throughout my entire retirement. I don't want to have to revisit this contractual obligation every 5 years or every whatever. I just want to lock in and I'm done. You can't hand over your heart, look at both of these strategies and say, that one's wrong. You just can't. It's just how that person wants to source retirement income. And so that's an income protection approach. There you would do the single premium immediate annuity, the fixed indexed annuity. There's these products that can provide that. And frankly, some people may have been doing this during their careers. Go back to the IRS agent, right? That person, let's say he was very, very, very competent and could have had another job. That person didn't, because at some point he said to himself, I'm willing to sacrifice the upside of my salary because what I'm effectively doing is kind of buying a pension. The opportunity cost of the higher salary is me buying a pension. You follow? It's kind of the same thing, right?
Safety and commitment.
Yeah. And so there, now let's go to the side strategies. The strategies on the other end, which is effectively optionality and safety first, and commitment orientation and probability based, they're not really concordant. They're kind of conflicting ideas. Mm-hmm. And so it's an interesting piece because you can see why your optionality probability based and you can see why your commitment orientation and safety first, they kind of go together, right? But the others, they don't as well. And that implies this sort of behavioral feature. And by behavior feature, let's take the optionality safety first. What you're saying there is I want contractual guarantee, but I don't want it for a long time because ultimately I want to be able to just replenish this floor. The only way you can replenish this floor is by having this sort of market piece to it, right? And so it's this, it works fine. People do bucketing strategies all the time. But what you're doing there is you have a bit of a conflicting thing. There's not, optionality and safety first don't necessarily go hand in hand. But, people are people, and you see this sort of how can we accommodate these conflicting thoughts, and you do that with a bucketing strategy, effectively. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have this safety first piece to it, and that's a bond ladder for 3 years, or MIGAs even.
Well, and the ironic part of that is quite often what I find is you end up with a similar asset allocation as you would with the total return.
Actually, you end up with a more aggressive allocation. Yeah, I'll say why. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's a mental accounting. It's just it's a mental accounting piece. And at the end of the day, if you look at the whole pot, it's a portfolio allocation. And the reason I say it's over time, it actually becomes more aggressive because as you use up the bucket one, as you use up bucket two, as you use up bucket three, what's happening, right? Your allocation to equity as a proportion to your overall asset base is actually increasing.
It's the rising equity glide path.
Yeah. Actually, that's exactly what I told Weade. I said, Weade, this rising equity glide path in a funny sort of way is really kind of a bucketing strategy just clothed into this portfolio allocation. You got it. You hit it 100%. 100%. You got it. But you see what I mean? Like, it's this kind of like, okay, fine. If it works for you, knock yourself out, right? Smoke them if you got them, if that's what you go with. But it's this behavioral strategy. And the same thing with the risk wrap strategy. The risk wrap strategy is, listen, I want this exposure to the market because I want to keep my finger in the pie, but just in case, I need this floor. You know, if it goes underwater, I want this floor of income. And that's the guaranteed living benefits that you buy. Mm-hmm. You know, and you buy it through increased fees. It's not that the variable annuities has high fees because compared to a mutual fund, it's low, it's higher. What you're doing is you're buying that floor of income. You know, it's embedded in the expense ratios, but that's what you're buying. And so you're kind of giving yourself that, yeah, I want market participation, but just in case, you know, I want to give myself an out. You know,
I mean, that's, to me, that seems like the most indecisive one.
Yeah, kind of. Well, I don't know about indecisive. I mean, because
I believe in the market, just think it's, but I don't.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I just rather have Weade here and explain that one because that's where he falls in. So I don't. No,
I think what Weade did there.
I think what it is ultimately is on that one. On the bottom half, you have the strong longevity aversion. Mm. You have this real aversion to running out of money. And you're trying to kind of reconcile those two competing things. But I totally get what you're saying. And, you know, there's many ways to skin the cat. I mean, I kind of think the bucketing strategy is the least attractive for me, frankly. Not necessarily the risk.
It's the most attractive for me.
Really? No, and it's fine. And I'll tell you this, Casey, when we've looked at this, the advisors that are bucketing are the toughest to convince that, hey, look, there's total return, there's income protection, there's risk wrap, and there's like time segmentation. The time segmentation folks are all about time segmentation. But yeah, for me, I'm income protection myself. Bob is total return. Weade is risk wrap. I guess you finish our circle if you're time segmentation. But for me personally, time segmentation is the least attractive. Huh. I'm not judging, and, you know, vice versa. I think you know where I'm coming from, but it shows you there's just different strokes. You're well-versed in the industry. You know it. I'm not going to tell you something that you're going to go, oh, wow, you know what? You're right. You know, it's your digestion of the literature has led, and your own personal style has led you to become time segmentation. Mm. Okay, great. You know, the next step is maximize the strategy within that quadrant.
Yeah.
There it is.
No, I mean, I can tell you story after story, and there's always one that I go back to that I'll just never forget, because presented 3 different strategies to this gentleman, and one's lifetime guaranteed income, and pretty much a flooring approach, and the other one is a total return approach, and then we had a middle one, which is time segmentation, right? And I'm going, I prefer time segmentation. You know, in all 3 scenarios, he'd be fine. I mean, he had plenty of money that he could take the risk of all 3 strategies. And he goes, I don't care about the upside. And I just never want to think about this before ever again. And he goes, guaranteed lifetime income. Right. And
that's commitment orientation, right? He was on that. No, I get it, man. We've had plenty of clients too that we were total return. So, you know, with the research that we came up, we realized we have to put this out to our clients, you know, kind of thing. And so we started doing this, and the messaging is, look, if you're not a total return person, that's, you know, we weren't embarrassed. Oh my God, we got you in the wrong strategy. No, science moves forward, and there's research right now indicating that this is a better angle. So let's do it, you know, and clients were fine with that. But we did find that some people are more income protection and risk wrap than we viewed them. And, you know, they were everywhere. There were some that were time segmentation. There were some that were income protection, and there were some that were risk wrap, and we accommodated it. And I got to say, to say, oh my God, thank you. This is unbelievable. We came out better for it. Let me say it like that. Sure. We came out better for making these recommendations, because it just becomes, you can create your investment strategy, retirement strategy that just become more bespoke. And you did the same thing with your example. You have this proclivity for time segmentation. You presented it to the clients. You even said, if it was me, this is what I would do. But you obviously left him an opening that he felt confident enough to say, hey, I get it, Casey, but you know what? I'm going for this income protection vibe. Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, and that's, when you asked me earlier, where do I see the industry going? I don't see the industry's going in this direction, but this is where the industry should go, in that conversation that you just had with that client. Because I think too many times, either the the person doesn't realize there's a strategy, or the person read some book on total return and doesn't become a client because you didn't recommend that strategy, because he thought, oh, that's the best one, not even knowing that he has a style himself. Or the client talks to you and you just convinced him point blank, time segmentation is the way to go. If you don't do that, don't work with me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that. You kind of presented him A, B, C, that kind of thing. And he you helped him on his journey, but ultimately, he was empowered to choose the one that resonated with him. And I think that's the way that this industry should be going.
One of the things you said in that article, in the Kisses article, or that blog post, you could call it, was that if you are only going to work with clients if they do a total return approach, then you should be upfront with that and not work with anyone else if they're not willing to do that total return approach. And I thought to myself, going, who's going to do that? They're not going to say, you don't think the way I do, but
actually,
here,
Michael,
go away.
True story. Michael asked us hey, can you write a blurb though about what happens if they don't match up and what should happen if they don't? So that was like, Wade and I were like, what the heck are we going to write? So we were like, let's put that in there and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I like that. But, something you said earlier about risk tolerance evolving over time. We've seen this a lot over the last couple of years as we've gotten into a much more volatile market. People's risk tolerance is starting to come down on people that we saw a year, 2 years, even 6 months ago. Now their risk score is changing, right? They're becoming more conservative due to the current environment. When you look at the RISA, do you see that evolving over time? And how often are you reassessing?
Great question. For us, this is a relatively new tool, right? So the only way I can answer this question, effectively, like real effectively, is if, I had 1,000 people when at the age of 40 and gave them the RISA every year and waited till they were 80 and seeing if there were differences longitudinally. You can't do that, right? So the next best thing, which is still valid, the next best thing is to look at cohorts. And what I mean by that is look at how 40-year-olds did as opposed to 40 to 45, 45 to 50, 50 to 55, 55 to 60, exactly. Look at groups of the population and see if there's differences within groups of the population. Because within every subset of a cohort, you have a normal distribution of an expectation of how people should land, right? And what I mean by that is, let's say if the people that were 50, were 35% were total return and 35% of them were income protection, and then 15 and 15 on the rest. Okay, it's split the way we expect it. If by the time they're 70, if we look at 70-year-olds and all of them, 80% are income protection and only 20% are total return, there's a problem, right? That means that over time, groups tend to get more conservative. We didn't find anything like that. What we found is actually quite consistent. And this is now across 2 national studies where there were no differences in RISA location between age groups. So that leads us to believe so far that this is more of a trait-like aspect that we're measuring. And again, trait-like versus state-like. Trait-like being introversion, extroversion, state-like being happy, sad. Those happy and sad, excited, angry, those things tend to vacillate based on environmental cues or, personal whims. Whereas traits are more underlying themes of your personality. And so we're starting to see this as a trait, which is actually great from a retirement income standpoint because, it is what it is. Now, how often should you do this? I don't know. I think it's worth just revisiting every few years, simply from the standpoint of just reinforcing the strategy with the client. And there could be some, and at the end of the day too, this is meant as a starting point. By no means is this a rubber stamp. Oh, you came out income protection, let's line you up with SPIAs. Absolutely not. What all this is this is a starting point for the analysis. Remember I said at the beginning, you asked me, how is somebody going to analyze the scientific method, and the reality is you look at everything, but not every, and then, whittle your way down, but not everyone has time to get a CFP and, in retirement. And so the reality is the RISA allows you to start from this very specific point and now you can work from bottom up. You can blow it out. And that's really what the RISA is intended to be, to curate all the available strategies into a few that you can begin your research on. Now, the advisor can curate that for the client or for the prospect in a very effective manner, or the client now has at least a manageable way of figuring out how to start. And then from there, you ultimately have to run numbers. You have to provide an economic overlay, because you may tell a client, and I'm sure you have, Casey, hey, look, the income protection piece makes you could have told that client, hey, look, income protection, okay, makes a lot of sense for you. That's how you want to start. But guess what? You don't have enough money to buy a SPIA that will cover enough. So you are going to have to do X, Y, C to supplement it.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to run the numbers.
I think this tool is going to be truly impactful for our business. I'm really excited about to see where it goes. So I love hearing about it. Now, would you have a few minutes here to answer a few fan questions?
Sure, fire away.
Yeah. All right. So we had a few questions. I know we're running out of time, so we dial it down here to a couple of questions that we have that came in from our Weekend Reading subscribers. So if you subscribe to Weekend Reading, then we will send you a preliminary notice that we're having a guest like Alex come on the show, and then you have the opportunity to submit questions over to us. That's what we did here with William. So William asked this. He said, for a conservative investor, I'm age 76. So these are going to be pretty random questions here, Alex. So be prepared. So for conservative investor age 76 with priorities of capital preservation and income generation, please contrast the merits of brokered CDs and treasury bills and or notes in view of Fed Chairman's commentary from Jackson Hole.
Well, I've been traveling the last few days, so I haven't been up to date with his commentary other than there will be pain, kind of argument. I mean, the quick and dirty answer would be if you're going, caveat emptor, this is not advice, etc. But the quick and dirty in terms of CDs and the like, if if keep the rates, keep the maturity low. That way you can it can keep up with inflation. You don't want to go long-term or intermediate term, if you're looking at that from a retirement income standpoint. And frankly, I would amplify your purview beyond just that. Depending on your net worth, I bonds seem to be kind of something you would want to consider, especially if they're talking about increasing rates or maintaining them at a higher level. That would be the best quick and dirty answer I could give.
Yeah. Keep your mind open to tools outside of CDs and T-bills or T-notes. Look at I-bonds, look at MYGAs, just look at all the different tools that are available, right? But
and MYGAs, you may want to, it's effectively, they're very similar to CDs. They're just issued by insurance companies.
Mm-hmm. But you have a lot of tools out there today that are paying significantly higher interest than they were 6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
And the concern is, well, what's going to happen 6 months from now or a year from now or 2 years from now? So stay short in that duration. And I think this ties in well to Ronald's question that was really regarding pensions and lump sums. He said he's got an option between taking a pension or lump sum. He said, I was planning to work 2 more years, but rising interest rates adversely affect the size of the lump sum. We have been told a 1% rise in interest rates reduces the lump sum by 8%. The calculation for 2022 was based on interest rates from August of 21. 2023 calculations will be based on August of 2022. I don't want to work for free for 2 more years, right? Because every year he's working, if interest rates continue to go down, that lump sum goes down. He could effectively be working for free depending on how big that lump sum is. How should I evaluate taking the lump sum this year versus working 2 more years? Scientific approach here, buddy.
Yeah, I would say there's one more variable you want to add. And Casey, please chime in. And the reality is I'm not, probably for the last 5 years, I haven't been one-on-one with clients. So my sort of muscles with regards to this are not have atrophied a bit. But that being the case, there's one more variable you want to add that I know we've had with clients, and maybe you've experienced this too, is if you take a lump sum, how much would it cost you to buy the equivalent quote unquote pension, from an insurance company that's being offered? We ran a few of those analysis we ran 2 analysis within McLean Asset Management for folks that we were doing financial plans with. And it made a lot more sense for that person to take the lump sum and buy an annuity as opposed to sticking with the pension of that company. you know, end of story. So that's another variable that you can do. And I was assuming there you would take the lump sum and put it in an investment portfolio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately, you know, what do you want to do, lump sum or pension?
Yeah. Well, and I
You know,
think the
other, you know,
question is
normal
more along the
questions like
lines.
look at the, go on.
I think the question is even more along the lines of interest rates, right? I mean, how much risk is he going to be taking on by deferring another year and another year? How high are interest rates going to go, and what's going to be the impact on his lump sum?
Yeah, well, I would say look at the 6-month bill, and that's your best estimate. That's your best prognostication of where interest are going to be when you need to make that decision again. I mean, I try not to get into the forecasting game because it's just a random draw. It really is. No matter what anyone tells you where they're going, they're guessing. They're just guessing, and it goes back to the thing I said at the beginning. What's the process? What's the best process you can undertake to answer that question? And the best process doesn't involve. You want to disabuse yourself from this. Doesn't involve where are interest rates going to go. I mean, you take, and I could say this over and over again, and and I know it sounds like a silly, but if you take all the top prognosticators of all the top investment banks and economists and saying, hey, where interest is going to be 6 months from now, I guarantee you half of them are going to be wrong, you know, and they're going to be in the wrong. So I don't know. You can't make a decision based on where you think things are going to be. And that's why I always started to answer that question, Casey, in terms of the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best process to put you in the position to make the right decision? And that process is not where interest rates are going to go, and that's what you should do. But what's the best? What with the rates the way they are right now? What gives you the best break even?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same question people have around the markets, right? Which way is the market going to go over the next 2 years? Should I work 2 more years, or should I retire today and put together that retirement strategy? The question should be, do you want to retire, and can you afford to do it? And if you can afford to do it today,
gets you there.
Right.
And that's what I mean. It's just what's the best. Run the process that gives you the best break even on this. You know, with the caveat of add the component of what's an open market pension worth right now, and by open market pension I mean annuity. What would be the cost of that contract? Because it may be better than the company's pension. And then there's normal. Is this a good company? Is this, you know, is this a school system, or is this whatever, you know, one of these a train company that used to offer a pension and they're kind of on their last legs, you know, that kind of thing.
Alex, you good with one more question?
Yeah, fire away.
Good. All right. We've got a question from Mike. Mike said, this is probably a fairly basic question, perhaps core to the topic though. As a soon to be early retiree, I'm planning income over 3 or 4 distinct periods. So I think Mike might be an engineer. Mike says he's planning on stage 1, retirement to pension.
Mike is also time segmentation, by the way.
Yeah, right. He's planning on retirement to pension, 55 to 60, pension to Social Security, 60 to 67, Social Security to RMD, 67 to 72, and post RMD, 72 plus. So I love the way Mike's breaking it out and really thinking intentionally about building a retirement strategy. The basic question here is, how do you break down and think about income over different phases of retirement?
I think about it like that, actually, the way you did it. Honestly, it's funny, right? And you see this, Casey, in your practice, and I'm sure you see it with your questions, this sort of bridging. You know, I think from 65 to 75, there's a sort of, okay, I got a bridge for this. I'm going to delay Social Security. So what I do at the beginning, once I get Social Security, then the next best thing, then the next question is the RMDs. And, you know, I'm surprised you didn't throw in a Roth conversion piece in that. No, that's really it. But I think about it like that. I mean, we can quibble on a year here or there, but I think he's spot on. At least it matches up with my view of the world.
Oh, that's great.
What do you think, Casey? I mean,
I think you can see it in 2 different ways, right? You can see spending patterns of retirees, more Blanchett research type, right? Yeah. Go, slow go, no go. But then you want to intertwine those spending patterns with what's actually going on, the facts, the science behind it, which is your Social Security, your RMDs, your pension, or
yeah. I wasn't even thinking about the spending patterns. I was just thinking the engineer, the Jenga component. Yeah, this fits into that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're taking that scientific approach there.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah.
Well, let me just go ahead and wrap up here today with one philosophical question. We've been so darn scientific here. Philosophically, what does retire with purpose mean to you, Alex?
Oh, That's a good question. I would even say living, with purpose. Because I kind of want to do that even right now in my retirement year, in my non-retirement years. I mean, retire with purpose would mean to me that you set yourself up. Let me backtrack a little bit, right? And I'm sorry. First, what does retirement mean?
I asked
right?
a big question.
What does retirement mean? And that's Wade and I kind of play with that term a lot. I don't know offhand how you take it to mean. And, I don't want the retirement cops to arrest me. But effectively, for me, retirement means that whether voluntarily or not, I've chosen to stop drawing from my human capital. And now I'm just drawing from my investment capital for the rest of my life. That kind of thing. It could mean, whatever. But to me, that's what it means, right? I don't need the human capital anymore. And I have the flexibility that sort of, I think, funded contentment is kind of a phrase that flows around. I don't remember off. Brian Portnoy, I think, came up with it. It's a beautiful phrase, funded contentment, where you can now underwrite the rest of your life with your accumulated assets, right? And so to me, that's kind of, I'm at the retirement stage. Now, what does, the second half, the purpose mean? Intentional. I have it, and now I want to be intentional. I don't just wake up. Unless your intention is to just wake up and do what you want that day and not think about the next, that's fine. But to me, purpose implies this intentionality to it, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. We have the piece of retirement, which means, yes, I don't need to work anymore. And the second part of that is, am I living with purpose, which would mean to you being intentional with your time every day.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Alex. It's been a real pleasure.
Hey, man, likewise. I really appreciated the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. Look forward to catching you again.
All right, man.